All along, it appears Joe Biden was really Putin's puppy, a phrase that Biden coined during a 2020 presidential debate against Donald Trump. Biden sold America as being a strong voice for democracy who would go eye to eye with no good dictators like Putin who have no problems taking out their political opposition. Of course, Donald Trump was a compromised foreign agent. The United States needed Joe Biden to save us from the grips of the Kremlin before it was too late. And today, finally, we got to see just how impressive Joe Biden can be on the world stage. Our warrior for freedom and democracy, armed with nearly 50 years of experience doing nothing in Washington. Over at CNN, the analysts were already gushing before any words were ever even spoken.
The handshake, Biden looked Putin in the eye with a smile. Putin looked away. Again, you don't want to read too much or too little, but again, these are about public posturing. It's about how you project strength. And that was a notable moment to me.
The stark difference between the media's descriptions and what you actually see is always hilarious. A clueless old man clutching onto note cards that say Russia is mean, everything is Trump's fault, read the teleprompter. But of course, the media has a job to do in all this. Fake Republican Anna Navarro tweeted out, Biden flew to Europe and jumped into a demanding schedule of meetings with foreign leaders, G7, the Queen, NATO, EU, summit with Putin. He even squeezed in a visit to the 9/11 memorial, walks on the beach with Jill, and Sunday Mass. When I go to Europe, it takes me 2 days to wake up. Yes, Biden, the energetic warrior we all know him to be. He woke up every day at 5 a.m. doing wind sprints on the beach. He sparred with Floyd Mayweather for 15 rounds before he met with Putin. And while we're not sure what was discussed, we do know that the meeting today was shorter than expected, less than 3 hours, could have gone 5. We also learned, at least according to Putin's post-game press conference, that Biden didn't press the Russian dictator very hard at all. Putin was held accountable for absolutely nothing and essentially agreed to change none of his behavior. Are you impressed yet? So what did they do in there for 3 hours? Well, Putin says that Biden spent some of the time talking about his mom.
He recalled his family. And conversations he had with his mother. Well, these things don't have directly something to do with our business.
Chummy conversation for a guy who doesn't have a soul, according to Biden. Interesting topic for a rival on the world stage. Russia just attacked the U.S. pipeline that feeds the entire eastern seaboard. Let's talk about mom. At the end of Biden's news conference, after less than 30 minutes of questions, came arguably the biggest surprise of the day. CNN's Caitlin Collins, representing a network seeing some of the most catastrophic ratings declines ever witnessed in television, shouted out something Joe Biden rarely hears, a somewhat tough and fair question. Not really a tough question, though, not rude or snarky, nothing like she asked Donald Trump daily for years, just more of a fair question, really. And just from one fair question, President Biden flew off the handle. Take a look.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident he'll change behavior. What do you do all the time? So when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight.
He denied any involvement in cyber attacks. He downplayed human rights abuses. He even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin?
If you don't understand that, you're in the wrong business. Did you find this?
What kind of answer was that? Talk about a load. So much to unpack here. First off, we are watching CNN attempt to morph back into a news network right before our eyes. Again, their ratings are so bad, they got to do something different. It's time, I guess, for a full 180. But let's just analyze that one question for a second. All Caitlin Collins asked was, why are you so confident Putin will change? As it stands, that would honestly be the kindest question of the day in a Trump news conference. And Biden is so spoiled by a media that propped him up for 18 months and handed him the White House on a platter that any question that isn't a layup, and he flies right off the handle and screams at the reporter. Isn't that remarkable? To all the media screaming fascism for the last 4 years, you installed a president that excoriates you for anything but a softball question. Are you ashamed of your actions yet? Are you embarrassed? Later on, realizing he had just screamed at a female young reporter for a network that worked tirelessly to elect him, Biden decided to apologize.
I owe my last question an apology. I shouldn't have I shouldn't have been such a wise guy with the last answer I gave.
Oh, everything's hunky-dory now. Even more bizarre, CNN didn't even get called on in that news conference. That Caitlin Collins question was shouted as he was walking away trying to end the thing. Evidently, CNN didn't even make the list, the coveted list. And yes, again, there was a list.
I'll take your questions, and as usual, folks, they gave me a list of the people I'm going to call on.
What a spectacle to behold, watching somebody incapable of doing the job be propped up to do the most important job in the entire world. I'd be nervous if Joe Biden was my landscaper. He's running my country. And while Trump, of course, was a Russian double agent secret spy handpicked and installed by Putin himself, somehow the Russia-obsessed media managed to not ask one question about what Biden got in exchange for that beautiful pipeline he gifted Vladimir Putin. Instead, incredibly, January 6th, of course, was a topic again today. Here's a question for Biden regarding Putin's habit of making any challengers to his power seem to disappear.
He said the reason why he's cracking down on opposition leaders is because he doesn't want something like January 6th to happen in Russia. And he also said that he doesn't want to see groups formed like Black Lives Matter. What's your response to that, please?
Yes, Putin himself brought up Black Lives Matter as well. A common move by our enemies, fanned the flames of unrest in this country. We know China loves to talk about BLM. China actually funds Black Lives Matter. Biden answered the question by making a very bold lie, which at this point is beyond irresponsible. Take a listen.
I think that's a ridiculous comparison. It's one thing for literally criminals to break through cordon, go into the Capitol, kill a police officer, and be held unaccountable. And it is for people objecting and marching on the Capitol and saying, you are not allowing me to speak freely.
Once again alleging that Officer Brian Sicknick was murdered by Capitol rioters. Despicable, really, in the face of mounting evidence to the contrary. The President of the United States saying a lie as fact to enhance his political agenda while at a summit with Vladimir Putin. These are the types of things, the types of lies the United States criticizes leaders like Putin for saying. The only thing that's clear after today is Biden lied when he said he would take on Putin, because Putin won big today, even by CNN standards. None of Putin's behavior was corrected. There is little evidence Putin will stop stirring up problems for the United States and being a pest. About the only identifiable progress was this little smidge mentioned by Putin at his press conference.
As for cybersecurity, we agreed that we would begin consultations in this respect with regard to U.S. citizens that are currently in Russian prisons, and we discussed this. There could be some ground for compromise. Russian Foreign Ministry and the U.S. State Department will work in this direction.
Not a lot of progress for such an anticipated meeting. And you want to know just how tough our president is? Here's Biden laying down the law.
I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period, by cyber or any other means. I gave them a list. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, 16 specific entities, 16 defined as critical infrastructure under U.S. policy, from the energy sector to our water systems.
So you can attack us, just don't attack these certain things. Joe Biden rewards Russia with a pipeline to Germany. Russia attacks a United States pipeline. Russia attacks a United States meat supplier, JBS, the largest in the world. And Biden responds by saying, if you need to attack us, just don't attack these 16 places. Attack anything else you want. It's fine. What a warrior we have in the White House. Aren't you glad we elected tough-as-nails union guy Joe Biden to protect America? Great decision.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest-growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.